There are, however, cracks in this story, and I've put them together just for the 20th century under the heading fault lines, because there are shadows of the past hanging over Limburg's identity which need to be highlighted, but which again I think are symptomatic, characteristic of regional history in this area in the 20th century. The World War I cast a shadow on Limburg's identity with Belgian claims put forward by some of the Belgian delegates to the Versailles conference in 1919, asking for Dutch Limburg to become part of Belgium, again as compensation for Belgian suffering in World War I, where the Netherlands had remained neutral. These claims were quietly ignored by the Versailles the politicians in Versailles, but it does cast a light on the contestedness of the region, and also on the difficulties between its neighbours and a not shared past. I think the other great fault line, again epitomizing the drama of the 20th century, is the Westforschung, politics, the pan-German politics, cultural politics of the Nazi regime in Germany from the 1930s, but with early roots at the beginning of the century, to 1945. Limburg was part of the ideology of the Deutsche Kulturraum, which incorporated Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands as part of a common cultural framework under the German hegemony. The Kulturraumforschung is a very important, I think, chapter in research into the Kulturraumforschung, I should rather say, is a very important chapter in the analysis of the Nazi ideology, which is supported by intellectuals in Germany, by academics and universities in Germany, and then in Belgium rather than in the Netherlands, trying to construct an identity of a common ethnic origin and a common culture which went beyond the nation states and was seen in the distant medieval and early medieval past. 1960s, 1970s, another, I think, characteristic period in Limburg's history where the province was seen as a backwater, as a periphery of the thriving maritime provinces of the Netherlands, of the highly urbanized belt around Amsterdam, The Hague, Leiden, Utrecht, Rotterdam, where the eastern province was seen as a backwater, underdeveloped, rural, at the back of modernity. This has changed again in the 1980s and 1990s, where Limburg has turned away from its view to its western provinces and has looked eastwards as part and developed itself and reinvented itself, or maybe invented itself, as a European region with a strong European economy, with a strong European identity, and a very vibrant cultural and social life. There are a number of texts that I would like to introduce here for further reading. There is a Journal of Borderland Studies, which is partly edited or co-edited by members of the Center for Social and Economic History of Limburg in Maastricht. It's a journal, it's an American journal written in English, so articles are available for English speakers. Most of them cover the remit of the Center of the Institute itself, so there's a large, strong focus on the 19th and on the 20th century and the social and economic history of the area in the 19th and 20th century. Useful is also a collection of essays by Klippenberg and Marcuse, nationalizing and denationalizing European border regions, 1800 to 2000. Again, it's the remit of the center that is reflected here, although Klippenberg is not a member of the center, neither is Marcuse. It brings together an interdisciplinary approach to the region, which is very worthwhile and important, views from geography and history. And I would also like to recommend a German publication edited by Hein Hubing, Europäische Geschichtsschreibung und europäische Regionen, historiografische Konzepte diesseits und jenseits der niederländisch-deutschen, nordrhein-westfälischen Grenze. So this is a look at the historiography of the construction of identity in border regions and across border regions, with a critical look at the changes over time in which regional identity was constructed, deconstructed and reconstructed. Münster, 2008. And lastly, I would like to highlight a few texts which are more focused on Limburg's history as such, but are also written in Dutch. I shouldn't say but, which are also written in Dutch. There is the Journal of the Center in Maastricht, Studies over the sozial-ökonomische Geschiedenis von Limburg. Again, publications of the center's research, focus on the 19th century and 20th century, focus on social and economic history. The Dutch journal Bijdragen en Mededelingen betreffende de geschiedenis der Nederlanden had a special issue in 2008, which is also very interesting and adds important factors to the debate, which is particularly dedicated to provinces. And the province of Limburg features prominently in this discussion of the role of provinces in Dutch history and identity and in Dutch politics. Provinces were traditionally not seen as very strong markers of identity in Dutch history, which is more localized. So you have an Amsterdam's identity, a Randstad identity, but it is very often identity is not so closely harnessed to a province itself. And this collection tackles the question of what is the role of the province? What is its political remit? Is it a counterbalance towards local politics? Is it an addition to local politics? So it is looking into the whole field of how does the Dutch state understand itself and where do the various layers of Dutch identity come together. And another collection from the Center of Social and Economic History in Limburg, brought out last year by its director, Art Knotter. Dit is Limburg. This is Limburg. Opstellen over the Limburgse Identiteit. A collection which is written by the academic members of the team. It's written for the general public to address issues of identity. And lastly, more general, for people interested in regional identity in the Netherlands in general, a collection, Carlo van der Voort and others, Constructie van het eigene, cultural forms of regional identity in the Netherlands. And I'd like to close this talk with the image of the front of the Limburg book, which again brings together critical aspects of what has been identified as Limburg's identity. It's Catholic, but there's also the bike, because no Dutchman is complete without his or her bike. And it's also showing an urbanized setting with a pub, the Kroon, in the background, and a cycle tour across the region. I think this is an important region, and it epitomizes key developments on regional identity, regional history, its strengths, its fault lines, it's changing patterns, it's changing layers, and it's changing agents over the last, I've looked at particularly over the last century or so. I find this fascinating, and I find it very important that we know about these fault lines, these constructions, these layers of identity. My own research, as I said, is in the early modern period, and what I would like to develop further is a look at Limburg in the time before the province, so in the turbulent centuries from the 80 Years' War to the Napoleonic Wars, and the way in which people in the past made sense of these changing orders, changing allegiances, changing overlords in the time. So this is something to look forward to. That's it.